staffing and the manufacturing supply chain. Although technology has been the focus of supply chains for years and remains essential for operations, in the end, as we all know, the success of supply chain really relies on people, building relationships across internal functions and with key suppliers to create stability and address uncertainties. And the outputs of predictive technology such as AI and cognitive computing must be still considered by staff. Technology coupled with human insights and decision-making drives the success of supply chains. According to a survey by Alliance, attracting and retaining skilled workers is a global challenge. 69% of companies report talent shortages, the highest in 15 years. Skill shortage has been termed as one of the most significant risks facing businesses worldwide. Notably, from late 2020 to April 21 till now, the world has experienced the Great Resignation. In the UK, ONS data has revealed that nearly 1/3 of UK businesses are experiencing labour shortages. The Australian Manufacturing Forum reported that many industries, including manufacturing, have also been struggling to hire both skilled and unskilled workers. In South Africa, we're experiencing a critical skill shortage across almost all sectors, according to the jobs portal Career Junction even. The reasons behind this global shortage are varied and differ country by country, but let's take a closer look at the UK. Many never returned to work after the pandemic. Some took early retirement. Leading economists believe that early retirement is largely to blame for the rise in economic inactivity. The official retirement age in the UK is 66, but some people have been retiring in their 50s and their 60s. New research indicates that the UK is down over 300,000 workers as a result of Brexit. And while there's some evidence that the end of free movement has contributed to shortages in some areas of the labour market, it's by no means the only driver. Over 2.5 million adults of a working age are currently classified as long-term sick, up 500,000 from 2019. Across the board, other reasons include too few graduates educated in the STEM discipline, an outdated reputation of workplaces that aren't safe, clean, or progressive, as well as a misconception by younger generations that manufacturing lacks competitive wages, innovation, and sophistication. However you look at it, the manufacturing workforce is shrinking. And to compound it all, with the average age of highly skilled workers being around 56, nearly a quarter of the skilled worker base will be retiring in the next decade. We must find ways to replenish the human capital needed. And with this mountain decline, please welcome 4 experts. Phil Peters from YF used to be Young Foodies, Head of Supply Chain Services based in London, England. Neville-Rolfe, Head of Operations for climate positive British spirits brand, easy for you to say, Sapling Spirits. And Sergio de Silva, a supply chain analyst for Flava.global, a seasoning manufacturer based in Johannesburg. Last but not least, Chris Willcock, Head of Brewing and Supply Chain Operations for Four Pines Brewery in Manly, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. Thanks for staying up after a day's work, Chris. Have you been watching the cricket?
Yep. I'm hoping this podcast ends just in time for me to catch the first session later on this evening.
I was just looking into it this morning. We were talking about it. It was like, so what? It's like 5 days and 5 tests. And like being girls at home, we were like, what do they do? What do they do with their families for all that time? And like, I'm like, surely Perfect. It's going to be a man's dream. Sorry, love, I've just got to go to a hot climate for a few weeks. See you later.
You have to appreciate a sport that stops for a lunch break and a tea break, don't you?
100%.
It's got to be a sport that was invented in England, surely, hasn't it? Do you know what I mean? All right, maybe we'll come back to cricket. I'm going to start everything off with a quick fire round, just so everyone gets to say something really quickly. So if you can keep your responses quite short. I've got, what appeals to you about working in the manufacturing supply chain? And Ned, I'm going to pick on you first.
What appeals to me about working in manufacturing supply chain? I enjoy making things efficient and putting in processes, to be honest. I'm a little bit OCD. I've always enjoyed throughout my life putting things in order and where they belong. And especially working at Sapling, which, you know, I was there from day one. So it's been a startup. So it's just been constantly putting things where they need to be and working out where things need to be, which I really enjoyed.
Nice answer. Chris?
Yeah, I never intended to be in supply chain. I came here through sort of technical channels and a love of beer. But I have stuck around and really appreciating working in supply chains and manufacturing. I think the teamwork aspect of it really appeals to me, having grown up playing team sports, really enjoying the collaborative component of working with upstream, downstream teams to bring a great product to customers.
If you didn't like that, you're in the wrong job, really, aren't you? Like managing upstream, downstream. Sergio?
I think for me, mainly it would be the diversity and complexities that come with working in manufacturing. You know, every day there's something new, something that you have to tend to or sort out, you know, whether it's from transportation to manufacturing, you know, it never ends, which is exciting. It keeps it interesting and it's not very mundane.
Yeah, so the firefighting. I used to work in a press office for Vodafone, and you'd come in and you'd never have the same day twice. It was always firefighting. Phil?
I started my career at PwC on the management consultancy training program and did kind of 3-month rotations across 7 or 8 different competency areas, and most of them are really dull, intangible. Like finance when you're 21 is like, you know, you have no idea what you're doing, and everything else, project management at the time was nuts, but operations was one where it was really tangible. You understood the product, you understood that, you know, if you were logical and if you could solve problems and think critically, then it was an area where you could excel in. And I think now being able to combine that with the relationship building and people side, which I think is crucial in operations, particularly with the challenges we're facing, is why I enjoy it so much.
Lovely answers. I think we'll come full circle on that in the end, and it'll probably just reflect almost the same answer maybe. So I'd like to start with State of the Nation. If we can all go around the room and go, right, what are we, from my introduction, is there anything that jumped out at you? Anything? I mean, obviously I focused on the UK a lot there, but I know you guys are from Australia and Johannesburg as well. So maybe Sergio, you want to sort of just paint a picture for the sort of State of the Nation for manufacturing supply chain in South Africa?
No problem. Yeah, listen, it's would be lying if I didn't say it wasn't easy. You know, with electricity shortages, a lot of, you know, strikes, things like that happen that disrupt your supply chain. It's obviously never easy to get a day where nothing goes wrong. But, you know, I feel like as South Africans, we're very adaptive. We find a way around these problems. And, you know, we have to continue despite it, obviously. It's one of those, you know, you either adapt or you fall behind. So, you know, I feel like we have a good set of individuals we work with who help, you know, find ways around things. And, you know, all in all, it's challenging, but it's nothing we can't deal with. It's nothing we can't work towards bettering. And at least, you know, there's always hope. You always keep optimistic that, you know, eventually this will get better or that will get better. And we have been improving, especially with electricity. I think at one stage we were going 12 hours a day. And, you know, obviously the disruption of manufacturing with that is incredible. But it's gotten better now. I think we're down to like 2 hours. So it's just one of those things you have to improve on.
Thank you. Chris, how's Australia?
Yeah, look, we are, I think, experiencing similar turbulence to many other places in the world. Perhaps we're a little insulated down here, but certainly through the last few years, COVID particularly brought rapid change for a whole bunch of businesses. It affected supply of certain materials. It affected the industries and customers, which I think is still being adapted to. One of the examples that comes to mind was 2 years ago during our peak sales periods, there was just a real shortage of truck drivers. A lot of those truck drivers had taken new roles, new jobs with Australia Post and courier companies, where they were getting a lot of work with home deliveries, which was really taken off and became a lot more volume through that COVID period. So certainly there's just been mass migration of labour, mass migration of customers to certain areas. Now we're coming back in the world of alcohol from a period where our retail sales, bottle shop sales, were very high, to a period where the bottle shop sales are coming off quite rapidly, compounded by some spending pressures out there in the economy. But we're seeing draft beer sales and certain customers come back to life, and still some of our traditional strong customers in areas such as the CBDs haven't come fully back to where they were. So it's been a real period of adaptation and turbulence. I think we're still swirling around somewhat in the eddies of everything that has happened, and with potential recessions and other capital crunches on the horizon. I don't anticipate that to change, but we'll stick to our fundamentals and hope that resilience gets us through. And I think if you really reflect, 5 years ago, a podcast like this, we'd all be talking about lean, and how we make our supply chains as efficient as possible. And I think now that, for me, the focus is more on resilience and agility.
Yeah.
I think that is a common theme from where I'm seeing it in other manufacturing and supply chain industries in Australia.
I think a podcast like this just wouldn't have had a place, certainly, 5 years ago. There isn't, well, maybe it would have done, but certainly I get the reason why I'm running it is, our customer base want access to this kind of best practice from their peers and to have these conversations and agility.
Yeah, I love it. Supply chain is the new sexy word again.
We'll revel in it. Revel in it for as long as we can. Ned, how about your perspective?
I think it's, for the last few years, for me at least, it's been rising costs just sort of across the board, and that's sort of just everybody's sort of becoming. It's all right now, but especially sort of that immediate aftermath from COVID, it was sort of suppliers saying, literally, this is your quote for this order. Next time you order, there will be a new quote. That's how fast things are moving. So it's been really challenging managing that, and then just trying to make sure you're making sure you're still making your margin at the end of the day, and also not pushing those costs onto your customers at the end, so they're still getting a reasonably priced product, or a product that we want to sell at that price. And then obviously, in Britain, the big word Brexit is caused issues with us. We're still quite a young company, and we're trying to get into the export market in the EU. And just chatting to people who've given us advice, it just seems as the new world post-Brexit in exporting is just a completely different game, and it is just so much more challenging, especially for young brands, to get out there from the UK. Distributors aren't that much more inclined to take on a young new brand than maybe someone more established out there. So that's been a challenge, sort of maybe over the last 6 months for us, when we've been really trying to push that. And then, as well as just on rising costs, is fuel costs as well. I've noticed that all my logistics charges is again creeping up. It's again slightly stabilizing a little bit, but with our main warehouse, I think in the 3 years up to COVID, they barely changed their prices, and since then we've had, I don't know off the top of my head, but quite substantial year-on-year increases just from fuel surcharges, and then also just having to train new drivers and increase their workforce. So yeah, that's what I've been dealing with.
It's funny. I must keep on track, because a lot of what you're bringing up here is topics that would be amazing to unpack. But it's worth saying to our listeners that we have looked at Europe in other podcasts in the past, and we have looked at lead times, and but I still appreciate all that you're raising. Phil,
Yes.
Okay, you've got this slightly different perspective in that you're not one of our customers, but you're a partner who helps customers. And you obviously have this kind of maybe a sort of an overreaching view of things.
Yeah, look, of course, I recognise elements of what everybody's talked about, and you know, there's a kind of sense of gloom and bleakness and general misery around, I think. But I think I probably would challenge the particularly your opening gambit. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, and we have the pleasure of working with a lot of really fast growing, innovative FMCG brands. And of course, some of them are experiencing those challenges. And, you know, as Ned referred to, like, the cost pressures right now are insane and difficult to work with, and difficult to pass on to customers, because the end customer is gonna suffer. And we've seen things getting tougher and tougher, and it probably will continue in the UK. But I think it has led to a period of innovation, a period of kind of I think, as Chris said, like resilience, but more than resilience, it's coming through the pandemic. Anyone that survived that period, I think, has this kind of renewed sense of purpose. And you know, if we survive that, then we can get through whatever's coming next. And I think, look, it will be tough, and there'll be lots of businesses that don't make it through this period. But for those that, I think the ones that do are the ones that have that core purpose, have that really innovative spirit, and are doing everything they can to make sure that their business is able to survive by having those early discussions, communicating with their manufacturers, and just trying to think a few steps ahead where that's possible.
Nice. There's going to sort of be good cop, bad cop, then, you and me, for the whole for the duration of the call. Let's move on to, so we're here today to talk about staffing, skills crisis, talent shortage, all that kind of thing. The first question I've got here is, you know, when you're growing fast, how do you go about finding the right people to help you grow? It's a very broad topic. We'll go back to you, Phil, because you're probably a quite good place to start. Just tiny introduction about YF, what you do, what you can do, and maybe then go from there.
Yeah, sure. I suppose kind of framing this, I work for YF. Sorry, not allowed to say Young Foodies anymore, but I think a lot of people listening will have known us as Young Foodies. Essentially, we help innovative brands to achieve mainstream scale, to help them grow quickly. We have a recruitment team, we have a sales and commercial team, and we have a supply chain team that I head up, and also a fee-paying community. So we really have our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the challenger brand FMCG community, and we work with retailers and investors to help accelerate that growth for those brands. In terms of finding the right people, I guess from our perspective, you know, we've got a great recruitment team who are able to do that and support brands with that. But I think probably the demand for those, there is a demand for kind of highly skilled, experienced people, but at a price that those highly skilled, experienced people don't necessarily want to go and work for. So I think there's the immediate challenge, which is our companies paying the right amount to attract the right talent. But I think that the mission and purpose side is really key and really important, and we found it by getting our B Corp status last year. And I know we'll probably dig into that a little bit more, but having that purpose and having that just that certification, I think is really attractive for bringing in the right staff, and yeah, particularly attracting young people, attracting that kind of younger generation. Definitely do care about, they care about having enough money to pay their rent and their electricity bills, of course. But for a lot of people, it's much more than that.
Would you say, like, I often, I was in PR forever, and they said in your 20s you did like consumer PR, and in your 30s you did B2B PR, and now in your 40s you go and do something third sector, something meaningful, something giving back. Would you say a B Corp, we've got 3 B Corpers in the room, haven't we? Ned, Chris, would you say it attracts the older worker as well, the B Corp? Like, with the point where they don't need as much money, they get to a point where they can sort of pick and choose?
Look, it's hard to say. We typically work with people probably at the earliest stages of their careers, partly by design, partly because that's the kind of nature of the challenger brand landscape at the moment. Perhaps the other guys have got a bit more of an insight into that. Yeah,
Chris, so attracting the right talent, when you're growing fast.
Yeah, look, Phil's observation of the power of being a B Corp, especially amongst the younger generation, is 100% true for us. We've been a B Corp for nearly 5 years now, and it connects massively and helps a lot in uniting our staff behind a joint purpose. In terms of generational, we probably definitely balance out on the younger side as well, particularly in our recruiting. But people who join the business who perhaps aren't as familiar, I mean, like my kids, for example, they have sustainability just bred into them, and the stories around the importance of, Indigenous culture and sustainability of our environment is something that they pull me up on all the time if I'm not putting rubbish in the bin, and they're only 8. So this younger generation are a lot more familiar with growing up in that world, confronting the problems of climate change, for example, but many others. And older generations, I think, obviously they're very aware of it as well, but it's not all about that being a B Corp. I've noticed that some people who are a bit further on in their career, bringing experience into our company, have not known a lot about it, but are really connected with it in the way that it promotes transparency, fairness, and I think just a general optimism. Something that in earlier generations of business, it might have been a little bit more, us versus them. It's a lot more, I think, a collaborative culture, which just brings people together and provides, I guess, value in the employee proposition. But beyond that, I mean, we spend a lot of resource upskilling people.
Let's come back to that, because we can come back. I hold that for a minute. I'm very interested to hear about that. Just let's finish on sort of the appeal of the B Corp, if I move to Ned, and then we'll come to you, Sergio. So outside of the appeal of the B Corp, is there anything that you do as a company that attracts staff above and beyond B Corp? Obviously, we've talked a little bit about the appeal of that. I mean, so for example, is there a benefits package? Is there a table tennis table? Do you write cool job ads? Do you write cool job ads? I mean, like that kind of thing.
So we're still a relatively small team. So we're still, I think, of the 5 of us started, 3 of us were there from day one. So we haven't really gone for our big kind of staffing growth yet. But I think what we like to offer people, as well as being a B Corp, being an incredibly sustainably focused company, which is sort of on the forefront of all young people's minds at the moment, is just offering just a really good work environment for people to work in. We offer loads of space to grow, and just being a small team means that you are not meaning to, but you do just pick up responsibilities that maybe weren't there in the job ad, that just are necessary. And we encourage the 2 people that have joined us, we support them, and if they do find themselves doing something that maybe isn't entirely their job, well, we're like, listen, own it, you do it, we're here to support you. If it's too much, let us know. But also, this is a staff environment. We appreciate that these jobs are all here to make your own, and then also, as a team, we kind of all challenge ourselves to make sure our sectors are sort of as innovative as possible, always trying to push each other to find a new way of doing things, and not necessarily a new way, but just sort of, for us, it's always, are we being sustainable? Let's really think about this for a second. If we have to spend an extra £1 or 2 here just to make sure that we're getting that recycled content that we need, then that's definitely something we need to do. So yeah.
Thank you. So Sergio, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about Flava.global and give us a sense of the scale, and then maybe tell us a little bit about what they do to attract new talent?
No problem. So here at Flava, we're actually a seasoning manufacturing company. We produce seasonings for all types of things, from chips to popcorn to whatever you could really think of that needs seasoning. We'll do it. In terms of attracting employees and so forth, so we generally like to go with the route of finding people straight out of university. You know, I know we have a connection with one of the main lecturers here at the University of Pretoria, which is quite a good university. Obviously, I'll half it up because that's where I went, but nevertheless. So that's, you know, finding those diamonds in the rough and giving them opportunity. You know, I found even with myself, coming out of university, you know, you find these graduate programs, you've been studying for 4 years and then they want 5 years experience. So it's always a bit tricky, but, you know, to take a chance on someone, give them the opportunity, you know, build them up, teach them what they need to know. And then usually it creates a sensibility as well. And it's great to develop these youngsters. We are still relatively quite fresh in the scene. We've only been operating, I think, now for 4 years. We are growing quite exponentially. I think in the next 3 years, we plan to have about 200 employees, manufacturing and on the office side of things. But yeah, I think, you know, getting them young, getting them early, fresh is really has been our approach to finding employees.
Okay, so thank you. Brilliant. I've got other questions here that may or may not be relevant. So are you competing with other industries when you're attracting talent? And do you have the need or resource to access international talent? Does that apply to anyone in the room? Or can anyone have to have sort of suppliers with maybe some thoughts on that? Silence.
Definitely.
We certainly compete with other industries. However, we take on the mindset that beer is the most fun manufacturing industry that I can think of. Just in terms of the general, social aspects around the product. But we consider ourselves like a training ground for young manufacturing staff. So we, hire and develop skills in our team, hoping and expecting that we can progress them quickly through various levels of training, promoting them and giving them career opportunities on the way, observing them and how they connect with our culture, as well as allowing them to build their place within our business and show what they've got. And then, if they've given us, if we have a person, I have the mindset, if we have a person for 5 good years, they leave on good terms and they go to another industry, another brewery, a different job, with good skills that they've taken from us and appreciative of the time they've had, then that's a successful partnership with that person. So despite our investment being theoretically lost, I still think we get more value than we put in at the when we sort of net it all out. Not to mention we get great references for new staff and a great we have a good reputation as an employer because our staff have appreciated the role that we've played in their career. It's obviously our intention and hope that we continue to retain those skills and those people, and we put every effort in that we can. But yeah, it's our resource allocation to upskilling, training, and our accepting that there's no way to guarantee that we'll be able to hold on to those investments long term, and almost celebrating that and our role in the brewing and manufacturing industries in Australia. It's I think allowed us to not worry too much about that per se. We just have good programs and good business strategy to to be resilient against it.
So I like the fact that you're seeing your role as quite altruistic there within the greater beer community in Australia. I quite like that. There we go. Got
Called it.
we knew we'd get one. Are you okay, Phil? Do you need to go? No, he's gonna go. I was gonna go to Phil next actually, but he said he might have people coming in. So let's move on to talking about type of person. So let's say, for example, and you've touched on this already, Sergio, a little bit. Well, actually, if you're partnering with the University of Pretoria, you're probably getting overly qualified people coming into Flava.global. But if you've got people coming in who maybe don't have the right qualifications, is there a type of person that you would look for? And I've spoken to customers about this in the past, where and you've all kind of touched on it right in the quick fire round at the top end. There's a certain sort of personality that you would look for when you're hiring someone for the manufacturing supply chain. Ned, you're nodding there. Would you agree?
Yeah, completely. I mean, we're still at a stage where we're outsourcing a lot of the stuff we do, which I'd love to chat to everyone about later, actually. But the kind of person I was chatting to someone about this earlier is sort of in manufacturing supply chain. I think you almost you don't want people to be, it sounds a bit mean, but maybe not too creative. Like for me personally, is you want it to be process driven, and you want everyone to sort of follow a way of doing things. So the kind of people I work with are intelligent and organized people, and it doesn't necessarily tie down to prior education or going to secondary education. It's more of a kind of a natural thing to be picked up. I mean, I didn't go to university. I learned a lot of these skills from actually working in bars and organizing stock rooms, and making sure the mise en place was done before my customers sat down at the bars I worked in.
You're using technical jargon here.
Sorry.
Mise en place, mise en place.
It's just like me. It's making sure the knives and forks the right way around, basically.
Okay.
But it's all kind of those things, and I found the people I've met and actually people I've chatted to, and I've said to the team that when we do get to a point where we're hiring people from that hospitality background, I think does move quite naturally into this kind of work, just because of the way you're taught to be organized and organize yourself and own things. I'm not sure if that's the answer you're looking for. But...
Yeah, no, exactly the answer. Well, Phil, I don't know if you missed it. We were just talking about, if you haven't got the right qualifications coming through the door, is there a type of person that you would recommend or you would identify as being a good fit for manufacturing supply chain? Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent, before kind of coming back into this world, I spent the last 7-8 years running hospitality and food tech businesses, and I think hospitality, as Ned said, like it's an amazing training ground. I think the idea that you need to have a university degree to come and my degree in philosophy and politics is not going to help me in a manufacturing career necessarily, but someone that's done a year or two slogging it out on the floor of a restaurant or in a kitchen, just mindset wise anyway, like there's just that proactiveness and can-do attitude that I think is pretty crucial. A lot of what we do, I mean, it's not rocket science, a lot of what we do, right? Like some manufacturing lines are a little bit more complicated than others, of course, but most of what we do can be taught to people that want to learn and want to come and build a career in a really exciting industry. So yeah, I think I think everyone would probably say similarly that kind of hire for attitude. Find somebody that fits the culture of the business, find somebody that seems to want to come and put a few years in doing the kind of thing that you need them to do, and back yourselves to train them up to do a good job.
And Sergio, I mean, it sounds like Flava have got a really good thing going with the university there. Would you say the people that came through graduation with you are all very similar, like-minded type of person?
No, for sure. I mean, obviously being new into any industry, you're eager to please. You want to, as soon as you get the opportunity, you want to make the best of it. And, show that you're grateful for what you're given. I think the standard of universities here is still quite high, in an international context and especially in a local context. So I think, all the people that I know that graduated with me are my colleague in supply chain also graduated with me. We were in the same year, and we both just share the fundamentals, that drive to want to build on that knowledge base that we have developed over the past so many years, and tribute to helping the company grow and getting it where it needs to be and wants to be.
Brilliant. Okay, we kind of missed your input into Phil, into the resource to access international talent or competing with other industries. Did you have anything, before I move on, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I guess competing with other industries, if we're talking about kind of a lateral move from, supply chain in one industry to another, I mean, of course, that's relevant. But I also think that the kind of skill set you get in a junior operations role gives you so many transferable skills that actually you're competing with lots of other jobs in lots of other industries.
Right.
So the lure of that for sure is there. And like Chris said, if you can get 4 or 5 years out of someone and they move on as an advocate for your business, then that's great. Not ideal, but
do we know what's the ideal kind of ratio there? I don't have that stat, and I could probably go away and find it, but like, what would be the ideal point at which that person leaves you having paid back what you've input? Do you know?
I think it's a hard question to answer, but for a business like ours that is growing and trying to grow fairly scalably, there are not always going to be enough opportunities for people to we have 3 or 4 within my team, for example. We have 3 or 4 managers, we have a head of outsourced supply chain. Those 4 guys, I'm going to have to find a way for them to develop and grow within the business, and I hope to be able to do that. But the reality is that we may lose 1 or 2 of them to either great brands in the industry or similar roles elsewhere. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to put a figure or a number on that return of investment, but we do know that retaining staff is always going to be a cheaper option than hiring, but also a more valuable option to the business. The longer somebody stays with you, of course, the better. And as long as you've got some pretty robust performance management in place, that's always going to be preferential.
While we're here, I want you. So let's just talk about your promotion, Chris, and talk about yours, Ned, because you both plant things based on. So I think if I've got it right, Chris, you're doing 4 for 4, so you have 4 plants for every 4 or something like that.
Oh, yep.
And Ned is planting things for every product they sell. Do you just want to cover off that, because I think it'd be quite interesting?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was our when we started. We just wanted to do something really tangible, like give back in a way that was really easy for customers to understand, as well as being a sustainable company. And it just seemed like quite an easy thing to do. Every bottle we sell, we'll plant a tree. And then we've got a little code on top of each bottle, and then we match the code to different tree planting projects on our website. So you can go on our website, type in the code, and you can see where your tree's theoretically planted. And it was just on that. We launched in October, November, and so our first experience of the product to customers was at a Christmas market, and it was that kind of thing. It was really nice to see kind of a lot of hard work pay off in that way, and that kind of direct feedback you get. And one of the things we got is that 1-for-1 message. Just people just got instantly like, yeah, I get that. I totally understand what you're trying to do, and it is fun. It's a good way of just getting out of the city. We work in central London, so in sort of from October, November until about April, May, sort of go around the country, just trying to help. We work with various charities, so we help them out. And we've done it once a year. We're maybe going to try and do it twice a year. We invite all our trade customers basically to a field in the middle of the countryside and try and plant. I think we did 2,000 trees in March last year.
Wow.
Had a couple of big marquees, did a cocktail masterclass.
Of course, that's what you do while planting trees.
Exactly. Well, being a spirits brand, you gotta You gotta make. Well, it's quite funny having these like these London bartenders come out who are all quite fancy and trendy, and watching them like kind of tiptoe around a muddy field, trying to, in their snakeskin Chelsea boots.
Okay, so I need an invite to the next one. We Unleashed,
No, of course.
Unleashed guys would like an invite. We'd like to help out.
No, please. We put coaches on to and from London, so you can get as drunk as you want, and we'll take you there and drop you home.
Okay, don't need to encourage my lot. Chris, talk to me about your cricket promotion.
Yeah, it sounds like we do something very similar, and I think where we went around the circle was through being a B Corp, having a good look at being carbon neutral. We looked at the carbon credits market and found that it just lacked a little bit of robustness and authenticity. So we decided not to just go down the pathway of buying carbon credits. We thought, how do we do some kind of regenerative practice in lieu of that? And ended up partnering with Landcare Australia, who are a non-for-profit locally here, sort of renowned across the country, been around for generations, focusing on regenerative practices on land and working with agriculture across the country. So yeah, we partnered last summer with Cricket Australia and sponsored the Australian cricket team, who hit enough fours for us to be able to plant 40,000 trees down in Kangaroo Island, home of the black cockatoo population down there, early this year, which is just such a good, I guess, hands-on, as Ned described it, immersive experience that I guess connects our staff, customers, and I guess just gives us an overall connection with that B Corp mission and a purpose to keep as our sort of North Star, keep selling more beer.
And obviously the Ashes are on right now, and the same promotion's running.
No, unfortunately we're not sponsoring the Australian team on this cricket tour. But never fear, we still are a member of 1% for the Planet, and 1% of our revenue across our Four Pines beer brands does go to collaborative partnerships with Landcare Australia. Last year we also got down to a regenerative hop farm, which was great to do. We use them as one of our suppliers for a hop harvest beer annually, down in the beautiful Bega Valley on the south coast of New South Wales.
What is a regenerative hop farm?
Basically a hop farm that does not use any chemicals, tries to use regenerative practices to manage their land rather than fertilizers and pesticides, herbicides, relies on getting nutrients,
organic
from,
matter and wilding and all the good stuff. Amazing, loving it.
We do something similar. We work with a regenerative farm for some of our wheat, and it is funny that moment when someone asks, "What does regenerative mean?" You have to take a moment and try and explain it.
Okay, in the interest of time, so attracting millennials, is there anything anybody else wants to sort of, so the idea being that millennials, and you guys sound like you guys are in that space anyway, tend to have more tech skills, and the whole workflow process becoming more tech. How do you attract millennials and hold on to them? Does anyone have anything else to add? We've obviously covered a little bit of that already.
I think millennials.
Sorry, go for it.
I think millennials. Sorry, Sergio. Are looking for to show their skills, and often part of the dangers of joining a supply chain is that you sometimes feel like you can be treated a little bit like a robot. You're running a process. You're trying to do it as consistently as possible, as efficiently as possible. But as you mentioned, millennials bring new skills and new, I guess, just familiarity with a whole bunch of upside, particularly in the tech space. So allowing a little bit of creativity and allowing for them to express themselves beyond just the the output of their day-to-day job can be a real way, and rewarding that too can be a real way to help retain skills.
And what do you mean by that? Give me an example of that, giving them a creative outlay.
Well, for example, some of our junior staff on the packaging line have recently come up with a maintenance request form. They created a QR code with a sticker that they stick onto every machine on our packaging line, which is about 7 or 8 machines. And if there's a issue with that machine and they can't fix it, they scan a QR code, enter the issue into their phones, and that goes to our maintenance team into a nice concise spreadsheet, which is integrated with our maintenance systems. So I wouldn't have even thought of that idea. That was something that was just riffed on by the packaging team themselves, and obviously they don't do that for extra money. But if they continue to do that, and you're not recognising that in their performance reviews and allowing them acceleration through promotions, etc., long term, it'll be hard to retain them. Nice
idea. Sergio?
I think Chris here nailed the hammer. Hit the nail on the head with the hammer. Sorry. You get a lot of new people in, and they're eager to prove themselves. Want to be a part of something bigger than what they are. So giving them that responsibility, that freedom to take something and go with it. I think it was Ned that said, you're not necessarily looking for someone who's going to reinvent the wheel, but move it as efficiently as it can. And hiring new people, hiring young people, you're always going to get that drive to show that, okay, I can do the best, I can do this. And just rewarding that, letting them go with it, letting it have it. And then if it doesn't work out, going back saying, listen, I see what you try to do, let's try to do it like that. And really just working together with them to get the best for your company, because getting these fresh minds in, you do see things from a different perspective.
So Sergio, when you joined Flava, they allowed you to implement what you've been working on at a degree level. Is that right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was given the go ahead to, they gave me the responsibilities of, I think it started off with the dispatch and the back end of the supply chain, with delivering and so forth. And they said, you can take control of this, you make it your own, and see what you come up with. And then, I was able to develop certain things like communications with suppliers, just letting them know, consumers, letting them know the real-time status of their orders, things like that people appreciate, that are really quite little and don't seem like a big deal. But, if your shipment's going to be a day late or too late, people want to know about that. You want to know, why is my order being delayed? Maybe we have a raw material shortage, maybe production got disrupted for whatever reason. And I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity, and still, we are attempting to come up with our own software. So just developing that software, adding things, knowing your company inside and out is obviously very important when it comes to that. But we've been given the leeway to, say, okay, listen, I think this is pretty exciting. This could help us a lot in this aspect. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, okay, you know what, at least you put yourself forward. And it's the worst to fear trying than fear failure, in my opinion. So we just got the opportunity to go for it, and it's been exciting. Luckily, the company is still pretty new, so any innovative ideas are always welcome.
Excellent. Talking about is there enough going on at an educational level and apprenticeships and that kind of thing? Well, we obviously touched on Sergio, the Flava partnering with the University of Pretoria. For others, do you think, we've obviously also said that people don't need degrees coming into the space, they need to be a certain type of person with a certain mindset. Do you feel from the people you've seen and the people you've interviewed coming through that there is this, which is what's being reported in the press, this lack of STEM qualified talent coming through to you, and then more could be done in that space? Phil, you're nodding.
I mean, I think the guys that are a bit more kind of pure manufacturing will have a stronger idea of this, but I think the increase in apprenticeships and apprenticeship providers in the UK over the last couple of years has been amazing. A lot of them are in the tech space, much more so. You know, a kind of younger generation coming through, learning how to code, learning how to program, you know, embracing AI. And I think that will be transferable to supply chain once we start to catch up a little bit more with what's going on elsewhere and start to embrace some of these new technologies. But yeah, I think apprenticeship programs are brilliant. I think, you know, the kind of standout one, I think at the moment is a company called Multiverse, who set up by Ewan Blair, son of former Prime Minister of the UK, who's essentially not just connecting people with the right opportunities, but also giving people the training and development that they need in order to excel in those roles. So it's bridging the skill gap, and also kind of showing that not everybody needs to go and study well, you know, if they're going to study supply chain vocationally, great, but if they're going to study, you know, some humanities or arts, and the idea that you need that in order to be able to do the work that we do, I just don't think that's as relevant anymore.
And what about Australia, Chris? How is the sort of government play within the manufacturing sector from an apprenticeship point of view, from an education point of view? Is it meeting your needs?
I wouldn't say that the government is particularly our biggest resource there. There is an increase in TAFE courses and also technical education that's starting to emerge here, particularly in the brewing and beverage food sciences sections. We probably rely more on in-house training. We have people join in our team from a variety of backgrounds, and as Phil said, with aptitude and attitude, you can pick up a lot, especially if you've got good mentorship and good technical skills there to bring those staff along and guide them in the right way. I think there is a bit of a difficulty bringing those STEM skills in technical areas into the manufacturing industry. Perhaps that's probably a little bit just the scale of the industry in Australia isn't huge, and therefore the pay and the opportunity isn't necessarily as large as elsewhere where those skills could land. I'm not sure how we overcome that, but I do think that those technical skills and those manufacturing skills and those advanced supply chain skills are becoming more and more recognised as things that we cannot do without in both the large corporate company that owns my business as well as throughout the supply chains in Australia and other businesses that I speak with. So perhaps it's just where we are in the cycle.
Yeah, I mean, from a UK point of view, the money's there for apprenticeship schemes, but businesses aren't using them or aren't using that budget up because they're not got people coming through. And it kind of goes back to Phil, you've got people who are techie going into maybe more techie roles, but they're not seeing it's a kind of marketing thing where when more needs to be done to better market, and I suppose this is what we're doing here, is how do you better advertise the manufacturing supply chain? And we'll come on to that at the end. I want to move on to global marketplace. You know, what labour challenges are particular to a B Corp? We've touched on B Corps already, but, you know, ESG and that kind of thing. What are the unique challenges, I suppose, upstream for a B Corp? Phil, do you want to sort of lay this one out, and then we'll pick up from there?
Maybe, maybe.
You want someone else to.
Well, I was actually when I was thinking about this, I think one of the fundamentals around being a B Corp is doing the right thing and being value driven. And I think when I think about staffing challenges that are unique to a B Corp, I'd say that, probably as a B Corp, we find both for ourselves and our clients have fewer staffing challenges as a B Corp than others. So I don't know whether that was kind of the direction you were going for on this, because I think just the nature of being a B Corp means that you will attract more more people who share that kind of mission and want to come and make an impact. I can't think of any particularly negative or difficult challenges that a B Corp will face.
I was thinking, maybe my question's a bit too vague. I was thinking more about upstream, when you're getting raw materials coming in and workers' rights and pay and that kind of thing that are then feeding into your supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, for sure, that's a challenge. It's a challenge in terms of there's cost pressure and balancing that with doing the right thing. That's always going to be difficult. We work with a lot of companies who who want to do the right thing, who want to buy the right products, who want to pay farmers a fair wage. Take Dash, for example, who we worked with before, who are using wonky fruit, like those kind of decisions and making decisions that enable you to to use raw materials that would otherwise be going to waste, to pick and choose. We've seen it with Tony's Chocolonely recently, what they're doing and their anti-slavery agenda. There are really good things that brands are doing, and I think where those brands are able to really drive that agenda is where they do have an innovative and exciting product that consumers like. Therefore, they're able to build a good, strong business and have a really strong revenue stream and ideally, a reasonably profitable, to enable them to go and do those really good things that they want to be doing.
Because it's a good idea in the first place.
Well, I think ESG is something that everybody wants to embrace. But resilience and staying afloat has been the priority over the last couple of years. So balancing those two things is really, really hard at the best of times. And over the last couple of years, it's been a survival of the fittest and making decisions that are going to keep the company going, so you can look after your workers and your people and your customers. So challenging for sure. It's hard, and it's often more expensive in the short term to do the right thing.
Yeah, Chris,
it's definitely having a long-term impact. Sorry
to interrupt, Chris. You're nodding a lot to what Phil was saying. How are things in that respect for Four Pines with regards to upstream and raw materials coming in and where they're coming from and the treatment of labour upstream?
Yeah, I think Phil nailed it. To be honest, it's a cost on your business to administrate and to, I guess, delve into these things in the way that the B Corp, I guess, set of standards demands you to do. In many ways, it's good. I think it allows you to have a bit more of transparency through your supply chain and really get under the hood and take a strong look, which I think is ultimately healthy and can have business and bottom line benefits too, as you understand it more and develop those relationships. Not particularly a lot of downside for B Corp for us. We have found it. The process of getting there is tough, but it opens up a lot of opportunities for us.
It sounds like the main thing is cost, in that you have that respectable upstream position, and therefore it's just about, I suppose, managing the cost, and you guys are obviously managing the cost by sort of offsetting that by doing cool, sustainable things like planting trees. And so as a consumer, I might be wrong here, this is the psychology, I'm going to pay a little bit more because I do this a lot. I am your atypical client, really, is I will spend a bit more because I know it's going to do some good in the world, and it hasn't come from, evil sources.
It's really just about doing good for people and planet. So I think really at the fundamental, it's around treating your staff well, and short term that might have a cost, but long term it has value. Treating your supply chain with a long term, lens. Short term may have downside. Long term, I think it always has had value for us.
It sounds like it's exponential as well. The halo effect of, like you say, it takes a long time to put in place, but once you put it in place, it just keeps giving. Ned, would you agree?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I echo what everyone's said on this subject completely. And I think one thing I just wanted to add is on sort of pushing for sustainability in the supply chain, and you do get pushback from suppliers, and that is something we've had. And I think one thing we've found is that sustainability to one supplier means a completely different thing to another supplier, and it's just sort of managing those expectations and sort of having a little bit of give and being like, we want to do the right thing and maintain that long-term relationship and choose the right people, but pushing someone who can make a recycled product to do one thing, and then someone who maybe works materials that aren't as easy to be recyclable to do the same thing isn't maybe fair. And it's just sort of taking an individual approach. Actually, we are talking to someone in our team about this last week, and sort of we're looking at all our suppliers as a whole, and actually it's not a one glove fits all thing. It's sort of something we're taking them individually and being like, okay, what can each of these people achieve, and in doing so, give us what we need in being a responsible company.
Nice. Have any of you got experience of competing with the lower labor costs of a global market? So in that your potentially staff is cheaper elsewhere in other climates, and you're having to make the most of everything and everyone just to compete in a global marketplace. Sergio? No.
No, I mean, definitely not. We are being a developing nation. One of the benefits is the lower labor costs that we have in this side of the world. We do struggle with more, the cost of competing in a global market. I think now the price per container and shipments is set to increase again, and there are other things that impact us. I think South Africa, especially, the biggest problem would be the brain drain, and the lower cost of labor isn't necessarily a benefit, because people are understanding that if you go overseas or if you go elsewhere, the amount of money you get paid to do the same job here will be exponentially higher, obviously barring living costs and other things that play a factor. But we definitely don't struggle with that. So
Why have you stayed? Why are you not part of the brain drain then? That's a very personal question. You don't have to answer it.
No, it's all right. It's all right. So I'm actually originally from Portugal. My family moved here to South Africa. So I love growing up here. I think it's a lovely country. It does come with its issues, and not to say that one day I wouldn't look to go overseas and make the shift. But for now, I have a lot of pride in my country. I have a lot of I feel like there's a need to give back, and if everyone had the same mindset, then it would be quite unfortunate for what I think is a stunning nation.
Nice answer. I want to move on in interest of time to digital transformation, and maybe stay with you, Sergio. So how do you identify all the technology gaps to safeguard higher productivity? So if we can't get hold of these people, and there is this talent shortage, we have to do more with what we've got. So we're talking about digitization of the supply chain. How do we start by assessing the workflow and working out where we can improve it? Do you have some thoughts on that?
For sure. I think obviously being a developing company, there's obviously still a lot of space for improvement and implementing these technological aids. Obviously taking note of the best in market, benchmarking off of them. It definitely helps to get your foot in and to develop that firm base. I think obviously being young, we have a lot of people who are keen to develop things and implement. And I would say, and I know I've mentioned it earlier, but knowing the business inside and out really helps when you're trying to develop these technological processes to make it easier. Because let's, for example, talk about Unleashed, the visibility it gives us just for our warehouse, knowing your raw materials, knowing what you have. And obviously now and then, it requires to go check and make sure that the real levels are the same as what shows. But small things like that just really help you, makes it easier to run the business, know when you need to reorder, know what your reorder points are. And yeah, I think that's really the most I could say towards that.
Amazing, thank you. Ned, you're Mr. Process, self-proclaimed. So you say you've been there from the beginning at Sapling. Talk me through what you've identified over the years and how you've improved things to build up the productivity.
Well, I think at the beginning it was just a spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet of just managing a business that was driving me insane. And yeah, I didn't really come from this sort of background, so it was a lot of learning for me as well. Just sort of, asking people, going online, which are loads. I mean, these days you can learn so much online just with your own, off your own steam. And I think one thing that really helped me was actually just embracing technology and embracing the things that are out there to help you. And it just takes a bit of time inputting all the data, but something that helped me is Unleashed in itself has helped me sort of put all the data in there and then manage everything in one place, and sort of doing lots of people's jobs just on a program online that I can just have running in the background. And I just, as long as I'm doing my stock takes and everything, and I can trust the numbers I see, it's all there. And sort of trying to get the company, there is a level where you do it to rely on a spreadsheet, but just to kind of move away from mass spreadsheets and kind of put everything into as few programs as possible. Because, all data is so valuable these days, and it's just making sure that we're not losing anything. And we can put everything in one place, and maybe we won't use it straight away, but there's data that we collected 2-3 years ago from Christmas markets and things like that now we've got the team in place and we've got the processes in place in marketing to be like, oh, let's dig that up, let's have a look, let's see where the wins are and maybe how we can do things better. So yeah, it's a lot.
I get a lot of there's a lot of it once you've had a system for a while, it's a very nerdy conversation, but it gets quite exciting, doesn't it? When you've got that, you can, when you're forecasting, you can really start to get into some detail. Chris, are you finding the same thing?
Yes. MRP and ERP software has really changed the game and continues to, I guess, as it continues to integrate more and more with the manufacturing process and the supply chain process itself. There's huge advantages and huge upside in terms of visibility and I guess data availability for better and better enterprise decision making.
What were you? Can I ask? Yeah. So as you were growing and you've got multiple sites and multiple microbreweries and stuff, at what point was the tipping point where you were like, right, we're going to now invest in MRP, ERP?
We were there probably from the beginning, as soon as we started our major manufacturing site. But we now work as part of a bigger entity, and we probably manufacture our products across 10 plus sites across Australia. Integrating Unleashed with other software has been one of the ways that we've managed that, and obviously we've still got a roadmap to continue building our business around the complexity that we keep building faster than our software.
Excuse my ignorance, who are you integrating with?
We have third-party suppliers who manufacture some of our products. We have a larger brewing business in Australia that we partner with and scale our product through cross-brewing. And we have small brew pub sites with 3 of them across Australia, and try to keep track of all of these materials and processes, large and small.
And you're using the ERP or the MRP from the larger ownership business?
Yes, they're using SAP. And we operate mainly using Unleashed, and we're working on ways to integrate our system. To be honest, having our smaller standalone system has been very good for our agility within the larger business, and allowed us to I guess keep building the business without disruption of the larger business.
Nice. Phil, sort of slightly different from your point of view, but you obviously, this is kind of your specialty, isn't it? You would be brought in to have a look at a business and make everything more streamlined, more productive.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things we do both within our own business and with the clients that we work with. So, in our own business, the majority of the work that my team do is running end-to-end supply chain management for different clients. Most of them are kind of anywhere between 0 and 20 million revenues. So, they're not necessarily ready for a full-blown ERP system. And working with a more kind of modular approach, like Unleashed, with whom the vast majority of our clients are with, is something that works for them. A lot of what we see though is it's less about plugging gaps and more about being able to redeploy the team that they've got to do more value add stuff.
Right.
So those repetitive processes that they're doing time and time again, is there a better way to do them rather than spending half a day on a spreadsheet? Can they spend an hour downloading reports and analyzing those from Unleashed? I think that's where we definitely get the most value, both internally, where we're always looking for those efficiencies, that we're able to become supply chain advisors rather than kind of administrators. I think that's really important for us and for the clients that we work with. But certainly with the clients, it's like, most of them they may have one ops person, they might have 2 ops people, but there's never enough, and there's never enough people to do all the things that need to be done. And so finding those opportunities to embrace technology are really key. But I think what's essential to all of that is that it's being done properly and being done for the right reason. There's no point implementing a new system unless you're running a change program to make that stick. There's no point, we can implement Unleashed, but if no one's putting the right information into it, if nobody's ensuring that the data is being looked at, like it's not going to improve the way we run our business. So I guess our role is to bridge the gap between the business as usual and whatever changes are happening, to make sure that that our clients get the most impact from the work that we're doing.
That sounds good. I feel like we've covered that topic very nicely. I haven't got much time left. I'm looking at the questions I've got. I'm thinking, which one do I ask? So there's a bit about upskilling, sort of responding to digital and green transition. There's a bit about retaining staff or retaining knowledge. And then I've got a quick fire one. Is there any of those 2 particularly appeal?
I think we've covered a lot. I think the retaining staff is not all that different to recruiting staff. I mean, I think we know what the important things are. We know that it's not about table tennis tables and beer taps. Sorry, Chris. With regards to keeping people happy, and for sure, it's the mission and the purpose that brings people into the business. Is as long as you're living those values, is what's likely to keep people in the business and giving them the opportunities to be creative and to grow and develop. So I think a lot of those things are similar, but we don't necessarily pay as much attention to them as we do when we're in the recruitment side. So it's definitely a learning and something to try and live up to those values.
I like that. Good answers on that one. So what about managing? We probably touched on this anyway, maybe Chris, managing a workforce across multiple locations. It sort of plays into that technology conversation, doesn't it? Is that obviously better engagement with staff, more retention of staff? I suppose it's just a massive plug for technology, isn't it? Like that kind of helps, or it all helps, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, the technology available today to, I guess, have a meeting with a production crew in a facility the other side of country is just, it's such a game changer, really. Not to mention, I guess, the quick access to knowledge, technical learning. It's all there sort of at your fingertips these days, and it's a completely different environment, even when it comes to upskilling your staff. I think managing remote crews, it becomes more and more important to, I guess, build staff, not just as a commodity or, you know, a pair of hands labor, but good decision makers, good communicators, good collaborators, and valuing staff in those terms rather than just purely, I guess, productivity or the commodity of their output. All of those things become far more possible and accessible when those things are taken into value.
Excellent. Okay, I know Phil's saying he's got a hard stop, and I promised you we'd finish on time. Let's just go round the room really quickly, very short answers, in that, you know, if you're creating an advert for people, younger people, to join the manufacturing supply chain, you know, what would you say to them? You know, do a little bit to help this whole situation that we're in. What would you say to a person that would encourage them to join the manufacturing supply chain? Sergio, you can go first.
I'll start off by saying, if you're looking for something that challenges you, it's definitely the right industry. I mean, it's exciting, it's vibrant, it's forever changing, and you know, if that's something you enjoy, it's without a doubt, go for it.
Ned.
Yeah, definitely challenging, but also rewarding as well. You can sort of see the fruits of your labor, and it is lovely working in a team. Everyone's sort of working towards the same thing, and it's a very practical thing. If you're a practical person, it's great. It's good fun.
Chris.
Yeah, definitely echoing the sentiments of Ned and Sergio. It's a dynamic environment. There's a real focus on problem solving, decision making, collaboration, and I think when you add in sort of advanced manufacturing and the new IT tech and AI and all of that's I guess descending upon supply chains and the industry in general, it's an exciting and a rewarding and I guess increasingly challenging area to be involved.
Phil.
Listen, before the pandemic, no one really cared about supply chain, like, within a business, and now people recognize how important we are and how important supply chain is. It's fundamental to everything that goes on. So I think the opportunity to make an impact and to grow and develop is better than it's ever been. It's an exciting time, and the technology that's coming is going to change the industry massively. So, you know, what better time to get involved and get your feet under the table now.
Oh, I got a bit goosebumpy then. I care a bit too much. Okay, that's. I really love talking to all of you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of the week. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending the time. It's been really a delight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure meeting
Thanks,
you.
Bryony.